What's up everyone, it's Kelly and today I've got another swatch review for you. Today we're talking about the new fall 2023 collection from Zoya, which is called Enamored. So real quick, if you haven't heard of Zoya before, they are a mainstream salon nail polish brand and all of their polishes are 10 free, meaning they are free of 10 of the potentially harmful ingredients that can be found in nail polish. They are vegan, meaning they do not use any animal derived ingredients, and they're also cruelty free, meaning they do not test their products on animals. So like I said, they just released this new fall 2023 collection and we've got 12 brand new polishes, including some holographic jelly polishes. Now I will say I haven't been reviewing Zoya as often for a little while now, which I'll talk about why at the end of this video, but historically I have loved their fall collection, so I was really excited when I saw these because I really loved that color story and I was intrigued by the holo polishes specifically. Before we get into the swatches, I do want to note in my previous Zoya reviews I have always said that I have swapped out the default brush for the Z wide brush, which is a wide flat brush that has a rounded tip, and in this collection they did actually make the Z wide collection the default brush, so I was very pleased about that. I do definitely prefer the wide flat brush and I did not love that you had to pay extra to get the wide flat brush, so just something to note. But yeah, let me get into these swatches, then we can talk a little bit more about pricing, availability, my thoughts on the collection, my thoughts on Zoya in general. So yeah, let's just dive right in and roll the swatches. So as with all of my swatch review videos, I am using base coat underneath all of my swatches just to protect my natural nail and prevent any stains. Today it's the Orly Bonder base coat. So I'll start off with the cream finishes here. This first one is called Frenchy and it is a super light neutral pink cream shade, and I gotta say it's been a while since I have used a neutral Zoya cream and I almost forgot how incredible they are. I just think the opacity is really impressive. I just love the range that their neutral shades have, and I think this one is really just a universally flattering color. It's got that nice softness to it, but it still gave me full coverage in 2 coats on my nail length, and it's just a really pretty shade to wear any time of year. Next up we have the shade Brianna. This one is pretty much a slightly deeper version of Frenchy. I would say this one veers more into that dusty rose cream territory, and again, same situation, just really nice opacity on this color. I think it's really beautiful. I love that dustiness to it. It definitely feels very perfect for fall, but this is also just a great classic nail color that you can wear any time of year. I feel like this is the type of shade that I get so bored by in the springtime, but when I see it for fall, I'm like, oh, this is so refreshing. So maybe I'm a little bit of a hypocrite, but I think it's really pretty. Next up, we have the shade Precious, and I was really excited about this one. It's almost what I would call a dusty orchid kind of color. It has that purpley leaning pink base, and it did look a little bit sheer in the first coat, but I ended up getting full coverage in 2. But what makes this polish really special is the little flecks in there. I love when mainstream brands do these little flecks because they look like little glass flecks, and in this case I can see a little bit of like a champagne gold and a pinky color to those flecks, and it just adds so much depth and dimension to the color, so definitely love this one as well. Next up we have the shade Vera, and again we're just kind of moving slightly darker in range with the colors. The creams in this set really reminded me a lot of their Naturelle line, but in a fuchsia orchid purpley kind of vibe, which they have done before with Naturelle, so I think that's one of the reasons why I really liked these shades. But yeah, this color is really gorgeous. It is a deeper orchid color. I found that in the bottle it looks a little bit more purpley, but on me I think it leaned a little bit more warm and even like a little bit pinky toned, and that's probably just because I have very warm undertones to my skin, so I think it was just kind of pulling a little bit more of that reddish pinky color. Then we have the shade Brynlee. This one I would describe as more of a magenta pink color. I found it to be a little bit brighter and more saturated looking in the bottle, but on the nails I think it was just a stunning color. This feels like the perfect classic fall kind of shade. I love that pinky undertone that it has to it, almost a little bit of a purpley vibe. And again, the opacity was really nice, 2 coat full coverage, and it was just so smooth and self-leveling on my nails. Then we have the shade Pamela, which in the bottle I felt looked so stunning. It's just this really vibrant, almost neon looking purple cream shade. And as I was applying it, I did find that it looked that color, but as it dried down, it definitely changed into into a different sort of color. And this is something that happens with a few of my Zoya darker purple shades. They look a little bit brighter and more saturated in the bottle, but on the nails, they dry down to a very deep color. I would say once this one dried, it looked like a more eggplant kind of color, definitely a little bit warmer. It also had that satiny sort of finish, although I do use top coat over anyway. I still think it's a really pretty color, but I was slightly disappointed that it didn't look like what it looked like in the bottle. Moving on, we have what I was the most excited about, which is these holo jelly polishes. This first one is called Twinklette, and this one is actually not a jelly. It is a full coverage scattered holo glitter in a clear base, and that holo happens to be this gorgeous pale pink color, but it really has all of that beautiful rainbow sparkle. And I ended up doing 2 coats for full opacity. There's still a little hint of visible nail line there, but I love the way that this looks. It's so bright and colorful and fun. You could probably get away with wearing it as a topper, but it might be a little bit too packed to be able to see the color underneath, so it might really only work over a neutral shade. Then we have the shade Venus, and this one is another gorgeous holo. This one is in this beautiful pinky red base, and it is just packed with those scattered holo micro glitters, and I just fell in love with this one when I was applying it. It looks so beautiful on the nail. For whatever reason, this exact color just feels like a Christmas color to me, but just in general, I think it's such a stunning shade for fall and winter. I ended up doing 2 coats again for full coverage, and this actually did cover up my visible nail line, but if you want to really go crazy with the holo glitter, you might want to add on a 3rd coat. Then we have the shade Jean, again a holo jelly polish, and this one we have all of that gorgeous scattered holo micro glitter, but this time it is in a medium blue base, and there is a little bit of softness to this one. I found it was slightly less opaque than the other shades in this collection, so I started off with 2 coats. Again, I love the way that this looks because I do like a little sheer touch, especially because this, I don't know, it feels like a very soft wintry vibe to me. A lot of these holo jellies were giving me winter vibes, but I did end up trying a 3rd coat, and I think it made the color a lot more intense of a blue, and it did cover up my visible nail line, and of course it is just packed with that holographic glitter, so super stunning. It feels very icy and sparkly and really just a fun time on the nails. And then the 4th and final holo jelly is this one Lennon, and this one is a teal jelly base, again packed with that scattered holo micro glitter, and I think out of the 4, this one is probably my favorite. I just think the color is so beautiful, and it definitely feels like a great fall shade, but it also I feel like would work so well for the summer just because it reminds me of the ocean with just like the little sparkle of sunlight hitting it. Again, I ended up doing 2 coats for this one, and it did cover up my visible nail line, but if you want to get even more of a holo punch in there, I think a 3rd coat would work perfectly for that. And then the last 2 shades in the collection are these deep vampy sort of shimmer colors. This first one is called Murphy. This is actually the type of formula that I usually associate with Zoya, even though I probably have mostly creams of theirs, but this is always what I think of for Zoya, is these really intense shimmers that almost look even metallic on the nails. This shade Murphy is a really gorgeous deep olivey green color. It has an almost blackened vibe to it, but even in lower lighting you can still definitely see that it's a green, and there's a lot of warmth. There's almost like this champagne gold shimmer running throughout, and it's such a beautiful shade. It very much feels like a fall color to me, and I thought it was so beautiful. I was curious to see what this one would look like with a matte top coat, because for some reason I think this type of shimmer just works beautifully matte, and I loved the way that that looked. That combination was just so perfectly September, October to me. I don't know how to explain it, but it was just perfect. And last but not least, we have the other shimmer of the collection. This one is called Eleanor, and this one was actually fully 1 coat coverage on my nails, so I was so impressed. You can actually see a little bit of my reflection in there, so I know sometimes that looks like sheerness, but it actually was fully opaque even when it dried, so I was very impressed with this shade. But the color itself is this really beautiful deep eggplant purple kind of color, again with that champagne-y sort of shimmer in there. And I think the combination of that purple with the glitter almost makes this look like a brownish color, which I think is so stunning, especially for fall. It almost reminds me of like the Hershey bar wrapper, but it definitely has that brownish hue to it as well. And of course I did try this mattified as well, and I think it looked super stunning. All of that shimmer just gave it such a velvety feel. So here are all the shades together, and if you couldn't tell from how I reviewed each shade individually, I really enjoyed this collection. Looking at all of these together, the color story I think is just beautiful. I love how all of the colors work really well together, and I love the different finishes that they included in this collection. We do have a decent amount of creams, but I also love that little fleck polish, and the shimmers are really beautiful. Those holo jellies just blew me away. I think they were so beautiful, and I just think that the colors all work really perfectly and the formulas were so smooth. So I'm actually really surprised at myself because I have been a little bit bored of Zoya, which we'll talk more about in a minute, but I have been a little bit bored of the brand lately, and this totally revitalized my love for them. So was very excited to see this collection. But yeah, let's talk a little bit more about it. So yeah, those are the Enamored polishes, and overall I am so impressed with these. I think that the colors were really stunning. I especially loved the color story together. It felt very inspired. I loved the formula of those holographic jellies. I just felt like they worked so well, and they were really stunning, super holographic and vibrant. And I think those are going to carry over really nicely into winter as well. And I have to say, I'm just so pleased to see that the Z-Wide brush is their default now, because like I said in the beginning of the video, it almost felt like there was like a tax on wanting a wide flat brush because you would have to pay separately for the brushes. And a lot of times they did have promos where if you bought X amount of polishes, you would just get the Z-Wide brushes. But in general, I just did not love the way that they did that. So I was very excited to see that that is now the default. I do think that their formula works so much better with that brush, and I think it makes them feel a lot more self-leveling as well. Now, as far as previous collections and my thoughts on Zoya in general, I do feel like the reason that I haven't really reviewed them as often is because I think their collections to me felt a little bit uninspired. In my opinion, their formulas are generally very good, but I just felt like the color stories and the colors that they were putting out were either re-releases or they were collections that I just didn't feel like the color story really went with the season or were colors that I would find myself reaching for the season. But like I said, I did think that this collection worked very well. It felt very inspired to me, and I think it kind of combined two things that I really love to see from Zoya in the past. One is their Naturel series, which was their transitional kind of polishes that I loved. They were usually a more neutral leaning or nude leaning type of collection, and I think that the creams in this set felt a little bit reminiscent of that, but in a purpley kind of version. And then also them kind of experimenting with less mainstream styles or colors, which I think they did with those holo jellies. I think that's just something that we see a lot less often when it comes to mainstream brands. It's usually just mostly creams, a little bit of shimmer. So I really appreciated seeing that, and it actually makes me really excited for whatever they're going to do for the winter and the holiday season, because this felt like a total hit to me, and I just would love to see them keep up that momentum. So yeah, these polishes come in 15 milliliter bottles, and like I said a few times, they do default to the Z-Wide brush now. The price does vary based on where you're buying it. On the Zoya website, they retail for $12 USD each, but they are available from a bunch of different retailers as well, so I will link some of those down below, and you can check them out if you're interested. That is it for my thoughts. I'm really impressed with these. I'm eager to see what they end up doing for the winter, because I feel like this could kind of revitalize my love for Zoya. It's a brand that I really enjoyed in the past, but I would love to hear your thoughts. What do you think of these? How have you been feeling about Zoya in general? Are you feeling a little bit uninspired like me, or have you actually been enjoying what they've been putting out? Let me know in the comments. We can chat about it. If you enjoy my swatch and review videos, please give this one a thumbs up. It lets me know I'm doing a good job. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. I put out new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And of course, a huge shout out to my supporters on Patreon, my Royal Astronomer Amanda M, as well as my Cosmic Admirals, Rocket Man's daughter, Paula, Ken, and Rosie. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye. Today's fun fact question comes from Patreon supporter Pookie Bear, and Pookie Bear wants to know, what do you predict will be a super in color for fall polishes this year? Now, this was actually asked last month, but as you probably know, I've not been posting as often recently just because I've been dealing with some eye issues, but hopefully that will be over soon. But yeah, I think we've gotten most fall collections by now, but I am going to use this opportunity to talk about what trends have been going on recently that I'm so confused by. And honestly, I do think this is just a sign maybe of me getting older because I feel like for the last, I mean, it's been over a year, but I feel like the trends recently have been like very specific niche names for things. Like somebody will be like, oh, you know what's really in right now is Teddy Grahams granola s'mores makeup. And then you look at what that is and it's just brown makeup, which is just neutral makeup. And I feel like that's so confusing to me. And I feel like the trends recently have just been like coming up with cute names for things rather than doing new trends. And I know that trends do recycle, and I know I'm not the person to ask about trends. Clearly, I am stuck in the early 2010s with the way that I like to wear my makeup and my hair and stuff. But I will say overall, I think that trends in general, at least in my opinion, are a way for people to try something new to see if that suits them in a long-term fashion. So for me, I liked the trend of the 2010s kind of makeup, and I found out that that was going to be my vibe for the time being. And I continued to do that even outside of the trend. And that's kind of how I feel that trends are. But I will say the names, like I cackle when I see the names because it'll be like honeydew girl makeup or honeydew and watermelon spiced nails, and then you look and it's just like green. So I don't know. I'm not the person to ask, but I will say in terms of like not nail polish collections, but what people are probably going to be wearing a lot in the fall, I think that brown nail polish is probably going to be the big thing. I think a lot of people like that sort of powder chrome kind of vibe over a neutral color, and I think that over brown is probably going to continue to be very popular. So I think for me, I'm probably just going to dive directly into Halloween vibes because that's just what I like. But yeah, and please don't take any offense to this. I am just fooling around with the trendy name things. I do understand why people do that. I think it makes it interesting and new because trends do kind of recycle themselves throughout the decades, and it's kind of just like a fun, I guess, Gen Z way of naming things and making them feel more exciting and new. But yeah, I do think it's just me kind of getting to a point myself where I'm not following as many popular trends anymore. So that's probably why it doesn't speak to me as much. But yeah, that's it. I am curious to hear your thoughts though. So if you want to let me know in the comments what you think of the trend names that are going around, and also what do you think is going to be a very in color for the fall season? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.